on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. It's your boy Gsluke here with our fades and sleepers for the 3M Open. It's Wednesday, so obviously a little bit of a better idea of ownership. It's a little bit more mature at this stage, a little bit more actionable as a result. And what we're going to do here is touch on three of the guys that I expect to be a little bit overhyped this week, my fades. And of course, our three plays that are being a little bit overlooked by the masses are sleeper picks. The goal here is to consider the game theory aspect of DFS to give you an idea of perhaps some of the plays that you should be avoiding in your lineups, and then some of the plays I think are going to be a little bit overlooked. So with that being said, a lot to hop into. Let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. Alrighty, we've got our projections on the screen, and one thing I'll say right off the bat, not going to waste any time. I do have COVID early stages here, so don't want to do too much talking, might end up hacking up along or whatever, but gotta power through for you guys. Let's start off with our fades, which up top, Tony Fina, one of the highest owned plays on the slate, is going to be somebody who doesn't make it into my lineups. Personally, he's dealing with the fatigue from the Open Championship, also playing in the PM wave, which if you looked at the weather, that looks like there's going to be a little bit of a split between the AM-PM and then the PM-AM split. So I'm trying to take guys that are playing in the morning wave, but on top of that, the guys that are coming over from the Open Championship that are playing in the PM wave, they're jet lagged 6 to 7 hours, right? If they're teeing off at like 2 to 3 p.m., it's like 9 or 10 p.m. for their biological clock. So for somebody like Tony Fina, who's going to be in that situation, also somebody who's, I don't want to say he's overpriced because I think it's appropriate for this slate, but he's certainly being overowned, right? Nearly 30% just because of his price tag, just because everyone out there feels it necessary to go out there and spend all their salary. He's going to be owned much, much more than he should be. I mean, just the concerns aside with the jet lag, right? You play him in 50% of your lineups this week. Do you really think he's going to be in the optimal 50% of the time, right? I mean, look at the recent form here. It hasn't really been all that fantastic, right? 28th finish. That is nowhere near optimal. 13th at a 10K price tag. Yeah, right. Sure, he would have been optimal at the Canadian in the Charles Schwab, but this is the best run of form he's been on for quite some time. I mean, the shots gained metrics look pretty beautiful for Tony Fina. He's gaining across the board, but to tell me he's going to be owned in nearly a third of lineups, to me is a little bit comical. So somebody I'll be avoiding in my personal lines. Next up, we've got ourselves Cameron Tringale at $8,800. So another player coming in on a very hot stretch of form. And for that reason, he's over 20% owned. And I mean, at $8,800, he's clearly a little bit overpriced. He's also playing in that PM wave, which I worry about. And another player, just like Tony Fina, that went out there and made the cut at the Open. You can see he finished in 62nd place, so not necessarily his best performance. But on top of that, dealing with the fatigue, playing in the PM wave. And, the guys that are playing in the morning, it's going to be like somewhere in the afternoon for them in their biological clock. Like they're not going to have an issue with the round tomorrow morning. The issue for them is going to be the next day on Friday, right? But they're going to have a whole day of rest, right? They're going to have a whole day to try and get themselves back on track. It'll be 3 or 4 days after the Open Championship at that point. So perhaps they're a little bit more rested and ready for their second round than the guys that are going to be fatigued out there playing on the first day, sleep for 5 or 6 hours, wake up, and then get out there and do the same thing. That just seems like a recipe for disaster. So another player that I'll be avoiding. And lastly, we've got Adam Long, who I don't believe he played in the Open. Yeah, no, he did not play in the Open, would not expect that. But really, I just think he's overrated, right? He's a top 10 model ranking, which a lot of that comes down to the recent form where you can see, though he didn't play the Open, top 13 finish, a couple top 25s in a row. But if you look before that, right, if you look over the last 50 measured rounds, for example, his shots gained metrics really start to fall off quickly. You can see the approach play comes back down to normal, around the green play becomes just an average for him. And he's somebody who really does it with the off the tee play and the putting, which I like, right? That's a pretty attractive skill set to have, right? Somebody that can hit a bunch of fairways and make a bunch of putts. But at $8,600, I mean, he's being priced around guys that are long-term, just better pedigree players and arguably guys with better form. When we talked about JT Poston as a core pick, I would much rather get to him if I'm taking a stab on somebody on the PM wave than somebody like Adam Long, who is just hardly less owned. I mean, JT Poston is higher owned than Adam Long, but if you're going to look at in pure optimal percentage rate, I mean, JT Poston is a solid 10 to 15% more likely to crack the near optimal lineup than somebody like Adam Long. So $8,600, he's going to be a fade for me. I mean, realistically, I thought he'd be like 11, 12% owned, but on my last run, 20.6%, which is way higher than I thought he'd come in and for sure going to be a fade. Now let's talk about the sleeper picks. So Might not seem like 20% would be a sleeper pick, but Sungjae Im, one of the lowest owned guys above $9,000. Because we only have so many options to choose from, I mean, what is it? 7 options above $9,000. Pretty much everybody in this range is going to be at least 20% owned. So Sungjae Im here at 20.1% is actually one of the lower numbers. In fact, there's guys that are cracking nearly 30% ownership on the slate. And for me, Sungjae last week, the shots gained metrics really tell me everything I need to know. From tee to green, was a gainer in all 3 categories, and then lost 10 strokes with the putter. That is a whole 5.5 strokes worse than his next worst performance ever for his career. I mean, I saw it firsthand. I was watching his shot tracker, had, I believe, a 4-hole stretch where he missed 4 straight birdies of less than 5 feet. Just was unbelievably tilting, particularly as somebody who had bets on his birdies that round. And he only ended up making 3, and I believe in terms of putts less than 10 feet, he had like 7 or 8. So it was clearly striking the ball well, just not able to take advantage. And the one thing I really like about Sungjae is in the past, he has thrived at weak field events. He's taken advantage of them, clearly seen the opportunity to be had, and at a birdie fest, that's also played directly into his skill set. And if you take a look at some of his wins, I mean, the John Deere stands out, but also down in Florida, had the win at the PGA National. That's a comp course I'm using this week. So he likes a Florida setup, also plays well at some of the other Florida golf courses that we see on the Tour Rotunda. So at 10 grand, he's the one guy up top that I'm really seeing myself getting to. He's a 20% owned, so it doesn't seem like he'd be a quote unquote sleeper, like I said. But in terms of relative ownership, he is one of the lower owned guys up top. Quick little mid-video side note, if you're looking for access to all of my player pool, all of my ownership projections, modeling, everything you see on the screen there for these players, make sure to check out my Patreon. A link is down below. It is $10 for the month. You get access to my Draftkings projections, also my prize picks hit rate spreadsheets, and access to the community Discord. So a lot of value there. If you're playing on prize picks or Draftkings for golf, definitely a resource I think you should check out. So back to the action. Just wanted to go ahead and plug that in real quick. All right, our next sleeper pick going to be Ryan Palmer at $7,900. He's playing in the morning wave, which, like I mentioned before, is the wave that I'm looking to target. But more than anything, he's a higher pedigree player than the peers here, right? Martin Laird, he's a much better player than. I mean, even Goddard, guys like Jason Day at this point of his career, Brendan Steele, Ches Reavie for sure, Cameron Tringale. I mean, pretty much up to Cameron Tringale, you could argue he's a better player than all of them. And now I know, Ryan Palmer has not been flashy of late, right? Hasn't really been doing much. But if you look at his track record over the last 2 to 3 years, he takes advantage of easy golf courses, especially easy fields where there's not that much competition. He knows his limits at this point. He's not one of those explosive young players that hits it a long way. But at a positional golf course where, you know, especially a field like this, where you're not going to have to take it to like 25 under par to win, he's got to be licking his chops, right? He's capable of getting to 18 to 20 under par, and perhaps that ends up winning this week. And he's 6.9% owned. I think you could do a whole lot worse than somebody like Ryan Palmer. In fact, somebody I've bet outright. I think it's somebody like a Ryan Palmer that's going to end up taking this thing down. There's a lot of like no-brainer picks, like Adam Svenson, for example, who we talked about during our core picks video, but he's nearly 26% owned now, right? In Draftkings, it's a completely different story with guys like Adam Svenson, whereas Ryan Palmer, 6.9% owned. I mean, that's a super high upside spot. Arguably, he's like twice the player of Adam Svenson long term. And now I know one of them is this up-and-coming prospect, shiny new toy that everyone wants to play, and one's an old, toy that you've had in the closet for quite some time, like a Ryan Palmer. But go back to the old reliable every once in a while. Ryan Palmer is a good player on the PGA Tour. He likes himself a positional golf course, has played well at Florida golf tracks. And the shots gained metrics aren't like horrendous, right? They're not great. You can see he's gaining on approach. He's gaining with the putter. Kind of what we're looking for there, struggling with the approach play, which isn't ideal, but that's also why he's $7,900. And last up, we have Jason Day, who, he could withdraw. This is what happened last time. We called him out as a sleeper pick. He withdrew the next morning. Fortunately, if you watched the Wednesday live stream, you would have heard that I was actually off of him, right, because of the fact that he didn't play his practice round. And I don't have that data as of right now. So if he ended up withdrawing from the practice round today, don't play Jason Day. But if he did play his practice round, and that tends to be the biggest indicator of whether he's going to withdraw from the actual event or not, then fire him up. Because I have him at 8.3% owned. The last time we had him, he was like $10,000 in a field like this. And he was also a lot higher owned, like 15% owned. Now he's $7,800. He's dirt cheap, right? He's like $3,000 too cheap. He could be up there with Fina, Sanjay, and those type of players. And he's 8.3% owned. Sign me up. If I liked him before when he was relatively chalky, I'm going to like him at this price tag and this ownership level. And really, we could stop there. But he makes sense from a course fit perspective too. He's gaining in 3 out of the 4 categories. You can see he's also losing on approach, but we know Jason Day, when he's playing good golf, is not going to lose on approach. He's a great iron player. And at a birdie fest, I think you could do a whole lot worse. Now, the one downside here, unlike the first 2 plays, is he is in the PM wave. So, if you're looking at that win split and you really think it's going to be advantageous to play AM guys, maybe avoid Jason Day there. But I only see it being like a stroke, maybe stroke and a half difference. If you're trying to get my final thoughts on that, by the way, make sure to stop by for the DFS Livestream tonight. That'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be showing you the split that we're talking about, seeing if it changes, whether it gets worse, a little bit less severe, whatever the case may be. But as of right now, I don't see it being like that big, where like I'm only playing guys in the morning. Somebody like a Jason Day who has that upside, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on in the PM wave. So 8.3% owned, like I said, gaining out of 3 out of 4 categories. Does he have course history here? I don't even think he does. No, he does. No, he played here once. He made the cut. Okay, that's good to see. I know Ryan Palmer didn't have any history, so he at least made the cut here. He's seen the golf course once out of the 3 years they've been up here to Blaine. I think all of that plays into his skill set. So that's all I've got for the fades and sleepers. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and smash that like button. And also go ahead and let me know who you're fading and who you're playing as a sleeper this week. We're going to have our live stream tonight, like I just alluded to. So if you do have any questions, you do want to see the last second notes I have on weather, ownership, my player poll, all that sort of fun stuff, make sure to stop on by for that. I will put a link down in the description of the video to that as well. But until then, guys, best of luck with your lineups. If I see you then, make sure to bring on any questions you have. But best of luck with your slips, your lineups. Hopefully one of us takes down a GPP this week, and I'll catch you guys next time.